Carl Jung made one observation in his final years that most people are still not ready to hear. He said wholeness is not perfection. It is something stranger. He said the goal of a human life is not to become good. It is to become complete. And those two things are not the same. Jung spent 50 years studying the human psyche. He treated thousands of patients. He wrote millions of words. But near the end of his life, he reduced everything he had learned into one quiet idea. He called it the self. And almost no one alive today understands what he actually meant by that word. Carl Jung was born in 1875 in a small Swiss village. He grew up around a depressed father and a mother who heard voices. From childhood, he sensed there were layers to the human mind that no one was talking about. He felt them inside himself. Later, he would call those layers the unconscious, and he would dedicate his life to mapping them. He worked with Freud for years, then he broke from him. Freud believed the unconscious was mostly repressed desire. Jung believed it was something far larger. He believed it was the doorway to who you actually are. After his break with Freud, Jung descended into his own unconscious for nearly 6 years. He recorded the journey in what he called the Red Book. It was during this descent that he discovered the principle that would define everything else. He discovered the self. The self, in Jung's language, is not your ego. It is not the voice in your head. The ego is only a small part of you. It is the part that knows your name, the part that has opinions, the part that wants things. The self is the whole psyche, every part of you, the known and the unknown, the light and the shadow, the masculine and the feminine. Jung believed the self was the center and the totality at the same time, the drop in the ocean, both. And the entire point of being human, he said, is to slowly become aware of this larger self, to stop identifying only with the small ego. He gave this process a name. He called it individuation. But Jung discovered something even more uncomfortable about this process. Most people never begin it. They live their entire lives identified with their persona, with their job title, with a version of themselves they perform for others. They mistake the mask for the face. They mistake the role for the soul. And they wonder, in quiet moments, why nothing feels real. Jung saw this in his patients constantly. Successful people, respected people, people who had built impressive lives. And yet at 40, at 50, at 60, they would arrive in his office hollow, wealthy and hollow, loved and hollow. He realized something the entire field of psychology had missed. The problem was not that their lives were broken. The problem was that their lives belonged to someone else, to the person their parents wanted, to the person their culture rewarded. They had never met the self. They had only ever served the ego. And the self, when ignored long enough, begins to knock. Sometimes through depression, sometimes through illness, sometimes through a midlife collapse. Jung called these knockings the voice of the deeper psyche, the self trying to be heard, the wholeness trying to come through. Picture this. A man wakes up at 50 in a house he built, beside a partner he chose, with a career he worked for, and feels nothing. Jung would say that man is not depressed in the medical sense. He is being summoned. The self is calling him home. This is the part most modern therapy never addresses. There is something inside you larger than your symptoms, and it has its own agenda. That agenda is not your happiness. Jung was clear about this. The self does not care about your comfort. The self cares about your completeness, and those two paths often run in opposite directions. To reach the self, Jung said, you must integrate every part of yourself you have rejected, especially the shadow. The shadow is everything you have refused to be, your anger, your envy, your weakness, your strangeness, your hunger. You buried these parts because someone, somewhere, taught you they were unacceptable, so you cut them off. But the parts you cut off do not die. They live underground, they run your life from there. Jung said you do not become whole by adding light. You become whole by reclaiming the darkness you abandoned. This is what most modern teachers miss completely. They tell you to think positive, to raise your vibration, to stay in the light. Jung would have called this a spiritual bypass, a persona dressed in spiritual clothing, a new mask, not a real face. The self, he insisted, includes everything, the saint and the sinner inside you, the wise one and the fool, the lover and the destroyer. Wholeness is not the absence of darkness. It is the conscious relationship with all of it. Carl Jung wrote in his Red Book about exactly this experience. He met figures inside himself he could not have invented. A wise old man, a dark seductress, a child, a serpent. He realized these were not symptoms, they were inhabitants. The psyche, he understood, is populated. It is a city, not a single voice, and the self is the one who can hold the whole city. If you have ever felt like there are many of you inside, you are not broken. You are encountering what Jung called the psychic multiplicity. The work is not to eliminate the inner voices. The work is to know them, to listen to them, to let them speak. Because each one carries something the self needs, even the parts you despise, especially those. This is where the practice begins. Jung used a method with his patients called active imagination. It is simpler than it sounds. Sit quietly, close your eyes, invite an inner figure to appear. It might be a critic, a child, a wounded one, a shadow figure. Whatever arrives, arrives. And speak to it. Not out loud, but inwardly. Ask it what it wants. Ask it what it is protecting. Listen for the answer without judgment. Do not try to fix it. Do not try to silence it. Just listen. What you are doing, Jung would say, is meeting a part of the self, a part that has been waiting your whole life. Comment below if you have ever felt this kind of inner figure, the one that keeps appearing in dreams or quiet moments. Drop one word in the comments. The word is wholeness. It tells the channel you are walking this path. Now return with me to the deeper teaching, because Jung had something else to say about the self that few teachers repeat. He said the self often appears in dreams as a symbol of totality, a circle, a square, a mandala. Sometimes it appears as a wise old figure, sometimes as a divine child, sometimes as a stone or a tree. These symbols are not random. They are the psyche's way of showing you its center, its hidden architecture. Jung began drawing mandalas every morning during his descent, circles divided into 4. He did not know why. Later he realized he was drawing the structure of the self, the 4 directions of his own psyche trying to balance. You may not draw mandalas, but your unconscious is sending you symbols of wholeness every night in dreams. The figures you cannot forget, the places you keep returning to, the strange objects. These are letters from the self. Most adults throw them away. They wake up and reach for the phone. They lose the message before it lands. Jung would say this is the great tragedy of modern life. The self is speaking constantly, and no one is listening. What I'm about to share next is a practice Jung used that takes only 10 minutes per day. It is the path back. Each morning, before you check your phone, sit for 10 minutes. Keep a journal beside you. Ask one question. The question is this: what part of me is trying to be known today? Then write whatever surfaces. It may be a memory, a figure, a feeling, a piece of a dream. Do not analyze. Do not edit. You are not journaling in the ordinary sense. You are opening a channel between the ego and the self. Do this for 30 days. Jung saw entire personalities transform when patients committed to this simple practice. Because once the self begins to speak, it does not stop. And once you begin to listen, you begin to remember who you are. Now imagine for a moment that Jung himself were sitting across from you, quiet, patient, looking through you, not at you. What would he say to the version of you that watched this video tonight? Probably this. He would say you are not lost, you are unmet, you have been living near yourself without ever entering yourself. He would say that this dissatisfaction you feel is not weakness. It is the self refusing to let you settle for a smaller life. He would say the symptoms you carry are not failures. They are signals. They are the psyche calling you toward wholeness. He would not tell you to fix yourself. He would tell you to befriend yourself, especially the parts you have hidden. He would say the goal was never to be good. The goal was always to be whole, and those 2 paths diverge early. You would say there is no enlightenment without descent, no light without shadow, no self without integration. And then he would lean forward slightly and say the line he wrote near the end of his life. He wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not who you were told to be. That sentence is the entire map. The self is not something you build. It is something you uncover. Layer by layer, mask by mask, until what remains is the one who was always underneath. So tonight before you sleep, ask yourself one quiet question. Who have I been performing as for so long that I forgot it was a costume? Write the answer if it comes. Sit with it if it does not. The self will meet you in the asking. You are not your job. You are not your role. You are not your reputation. You are not even your story. You are the awareness underneath all of it, the one Jung spent his life trying to point toward, the one waiting now. What you resist persists. What you face transforms. What you integrate becomes power. This is the Jungian way. The self is not a destination. It is a return, and it has been waiting longer than you know. If this spoke to something inside you, subscribe to the Archetype code. We decode one hidden part of the psyche each week. And remember this, wholeness is not perfection. It is the courage to include every part of yourself in the same human life.